Hello, everybody.
Let's get started with the disclaimer so that we can get through everything this evening and make sure we leave plenty of time for everybody's questions at the end. This is not a solicitation to buy or sell any security ever. This is not advice. You should read the characteristics and risks of standardized options. The results here are provided for general information purposes as a convenience to the viewers. The materials are not a substitute for obtaining professional advice from a qualified person, firm, or corporation. Trading futures and options involves the risk of loss. Please consider carefully whether futures or options are appropriate to your financial situation. Only risk capital should be used when trading futures or options. Investors could lose more than their initial investment. Past results are not necessarily indicative of future results. The risk of loss in trading can be substantial. Carefully consider the inherent risk of such an investment in light of your financial condition. All right. And then, as I said, we had a lot of requests after last week's session when we discussed the new features that were coming to Pattern Finder that have now been launched in beta for all Pattern Finder subscribers. So we had a lot of people wanting to know, hey, how do you use Pattern Finder with TradeMachine? So I'm going to take a minute, run through a very, very basic example of this, and then turn it over to Max to go a little bit deeper. So first and foremost, if you have not yet seen it, the new feature within Pattern Finder, this stock chart analysis tool, fully run by AI, and it's going to kind of give you an overall view of what everything that you're seeing on the stock chart in TradeMachine or in Pattern Finder. It takes everything into account, including P&L zones, and gives you a pretty detailed trading plan at the bottom, including whether the ticker is currently more bearish or bullish based on all of these factors. So how to apply this in your TradeMachine options trades, there are a number of ways to do so, but the way that I like to use Pattern Finder in conjunction with TradeMachine is by taking advantage of the stock screens. So in this area, you can kind of set up your best case scenario. What all do you want a stock to have before you consider it for an options trade? And you can target whether you're bullish or bearish on the stock. We have several pre-built screens along the side here, but you can custom build from hundreds of options across here to select your specific preferences for analysis, including you can apply skew and kurtosis, which we will look at in a minute. But the way I like to use this is right now my favorite has kind of been the bullish charts. That is actually the newest introduction to Pattern Finder as far as the screens are concerned. So I then take this and personally like to filter based on positive kurtosis. So then I take all of the tickers with positive kurtosis and review, see, okay, maybe I don't want to go for these, but these upper ones that have strong positive kurtosis, I'm going to look at. So I then export the tickers, which I've already done, and I take those over to TradeMachine and go to ProScan. And I know we've talked about ProScan a lot, but this is one way that you can really build your alerts portfolio and you can do it quickly. So I took all of the tickers that had positive kurtosis, and right now I'm only going to look at the 1-year back tests so that I can kind of see what the most recent trends have been. You can then further filter it by back test return, average trade return, or just look through based on wins. But while we're here, let's just look at this top one. And I know this one was actually active today. So we'll go ahead and open up the backtest. If I was just using this to build the alerts portfolio right now and not looking for active trades, I would just add alerts right from ProScan. But in this case, it was an active trade today. It triggered, all of the conditions were met. You can see that from here. That is not always the case with ProScan. As we've talked about before, ProScan is not going to be your currently active triggers. That would be the Today tab. But since we have this one, we can see that it's got a 50% limit. Go ahead and plan on taking this trade. So get the options, or If you're not a platinum member, this is a platinum feature to show the options. You can always go to the options chain and identify the options based on the settings of the backtest. So we're looking for closest to 30 days to expiration. So in that case, 22 is closer than 57, so we will go with the August. Here are the options. Let's do a quick screenshot so we can compare. So as you can see, found the short was supposed to be at the 40 delta, and closest to 40 delta is going to be the August 16th, 2024 puts. And that's also going to be the closest options. Since it's aftermarket, it looks like it has dropped off one of the options because it's not showing the $5 puts on my options chain, but this would be the trade that tomorrow is going to reflect in TradeMachine. So I know Max has talked about previously, he likes to use his own discretion, which is great. I always recommend that you deep dive into it before you make the commitment of taking the trade. But as a note, this is the exact ones that are going to reflect in TradeMachine tomorrow. All right. So I know that was quick. I wanted to leave enough time for everybody to ask questions at the end. So if you do have questions, we can certainly revisit something. But I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Max because he has a little bit more that he wants to show from the opposite side of Pattern Finder, going backwards from TradeMachine to Pattern Finder.
Great. Thank you. Good job. All right, I'm going to share screen. This past Monday, after the big debacle over the weekend, Friday and over the weekend with CrowdStrike software having a problem with the Microsoft software that it sits on top of and causing all sorts of travel problems and banking problems, et cetera, et cetera. So come Monday morning, Crowd was off many points. And I'm thinking, hey, I wonder if I'm going to get some alerts today about maybe it went down too far. Maybe there's a buy the sell off or a spread the sell off, some kind of trade that I can put on to take advantage of this situation. And sure enough, late morning, I get an alert for Crowd. It's a buy the sell off, and it's got a good back test. It is a 60-day, 30-day long call diagonal, which we can verify right here. Long call, 50 delta, 60 days. Oh, it's a 20, 50, 20. 20 delta short call, 30 days out. All right. And it's going to run it again. Still has good results. But then I said, Max, what does Pattern Finder think about this? What does Pattern Finder think about Crowd before I go and take this trade? So I went into Pattern Finder and I looked at the chart, and then I clicked on the AI button, as Amanda had shown you before, and I got the stock chart AI analysis. And you can read this on your own, but go through what the key things were for me. Trying to figure out if it's bearish or bullish. It looks in volume analysis and price change and trend lines. You'll see this right here. This is very important, and it's mentioned in the summary at the bottom. An overall rating is 10 on a scale of 0 to 100. This is very bearish. So that's a strike against taking that buy the sell-off bullish trade that we received an alert for on TradeMachine. But I continue to go through it. Talks about points of support, points of resistance. I don't know if you guys have seen this or not. Upside and downside targets based on support and resistance. And then it gives you summary trading plan. And it highlights why it thinks it's more of a bearish trade than a bullish trade, but it gives you key support and key resistance, targets to the upside and downside, and then gives you a concise trading plan. Given the strong bearish indicators, consider short positions or protected puts if you already had a position. Monitor the support level at 250. A break below that could signal further downside. And it's getting close to that right now, today, Thursday. End of the day was $2.15. And then it says, hey, if you still want to get long, wait for a confirmed reversal above 3.0. So based on this analysis, I'm not that interested the Crowd by the sell-off bullish alert. Then in CML Pro community, late morning, the users in the CML Pro community and Ophir were talking about this same issue. Is it time to start taking a long position? Has it come off enough? And someone went over what I just went over with you guys. And then someone else asked about, well, what are the competitors to Crowd? And sure enough, another alert I got that morning was for Sentinel One, which has similar software to what CrowdStrike does. Not as successful yet. As you can tell, the price is only 23. I don't know how long it's been public, but it's a valid competitor. And I received a buy the dip because I guess the crowd reaction and the bearishness of it also affected its competitors, including Sentinel One. So Sentinel One, I got to buy the dip, slightly different trade. In this case, it is a 30-day to expiration long call spread, 50-30. 50 delta, 30 delta. And I said, well, I got to check it out on the pattern finder and see what kind of information it gives me for Sentinel One. Come on. Thank
Oh,
you.
that's loading, Max. I know you've mentioned on other sessions that you are not much of a chartist, so you don't do a lot of chart analysis. Do you
I
want to
look,
share your kind of impression or how you're noticing a difference in an chart analysis with this tool? Is it making it easier or
oh yeah.
I,
The bottom line of my thoughts are I'm not a chartist. If I see something that I think is significant on the chart and I take a trade because of it, I would advise everyone else in community to go the other way. I am not a chartist. So this is perfect for me. When we're done with this, I'll quickly show you what I look at. Just I look at the profit and loss zones and the clear support and resistance lines on a basic chart and just to see if I'm in the right area. But that's all I use Pattern Finder for up until now. Now I use it every day. So we're looking at Sentinel One and similar line, points of support. Is this bearish or bullish? You'll notice that it has a bullish, moderately bullish 70 rating. On Monday, this was at 85. It was a very bullish rating, but I didn't take a picture of it at the time, so we're using tonight's information. We go down to the summary plan, trading strategy, given the bullish indicators. If we just this is focusing on, buying or selling the stock, but I can make an option trade out of it. I already have an option trade alert that on call spread with 30 DTE, and it tells me what my upside targets are, which are pretty consistent to what they were on Monday, and tells me where to be careful. If this thing drops to 22.82 and then 21.81, that's my soft stop. It's time to re-examine my long call spread and decide if I want to stay in or make a modification to it or just close the trade. If it breaks below these support levels that the chart AI has signified as important to me. All right, so I went ahead and did this trade. It's up a couple of dollars. It was up a couple more before yesterday. Came back a little today. I'm still in the position. I've got time, 30 DTE. Next earnings, which I always check before I take a trade, even though it's not verified, is not until August 29, so I don't have to worry about the earnings event. Back to Pattern Finder. When I look at before this AI component came along, I start with the 3-month chart just to see how it looks in the short term. And this, to me, this is just a wide congestion area. I then look at the 18-month. I see some horizontal lines of support. I see this resistance line that's been broken, but I know nothing about charts. And then I settle on the 9-month. I think that's near term enough for me usually, and similar to the 18-month result. And that's the extent of how I use Pattern Finder. So I am not a good person to talk about Pattern Finder, but I leave everything on, and that's how I used it in the past. I didn't attach that much significance to it until AI came along and told me what to pay attention to. So I find the chart AI analysis extremely significant. And that concludes my presentation on how I use TradeMachine and Pattern Finder.
right, Max? We don't have any questions in the chat right now, but if you have a question for Max or I, we can go over anything in Trade Machine. It doesn't have to be this. It was just a very highly requested session that we do. So we wanted to go ahead and get that out and show a couple ways that you can use those tools together. But if you have any other questions about TradeMachine, by all means, drop them in the chat.
Okay, so we can't let people leave before at least 7:30.
If there was a dividend event period, how would it affect a trade?
It wouldn't affect it for me. I don't really pay attention to dividends, so I really don't let it bother me.
So that's just a personal trading strategy,
Yeah. No,
basically.
my personal choice. Yeah,
Well, that's
absolutely.
what I'm saying. That's one of those that's kind of up for your personal interpretation. Some people I know do watch when dividends are happening and will get out of the trade. So,
Yeah. If I was short and didn't want to be assigned, then I'd be paying attention to when the dividend alert was. I guess I was a little flip about it. I don't pay attention to it. Yeah, I guess I have to consider the event for things like that if I don't want to be assigned. Or if I'm long shares and short calls and I get assigned on the short call and now I'm going to lose my stock and I now have a tax event, I guess I'd be paying attention to it for that reason as well. But in general, I look at the earnings event just to see what day that is and do I have enough days for a trade. That's what I focus on.
right. Is it possible to save the AI analysis for reference if the trade is taken? So there's not a way to save it in Pattern Finder, but it is selectable, so you can highlight, copy, and paste.
Right,
And that's
right.
what I normally use is I will copy and paste it. I know we've talked previously about keeping like a trade log. I would just copy and paste it directly into my trade log with the trade that was taken. And that way I have a reference point that I can look back on and pull up at any time.
Yeah. And what I do is I just write next to in my trade log, which is manual, those significant support points and resistance points that I showed when we were looking at it a couple of minutes ago.
All right. Do you have to be an annual subscriber from the chart AI to be for the chart AI to be available? No. Any Pattern Finder subscriber does get access to the AI feature.
Cool.
All right. Hi, Amanda. Your mic sounds so much better. I got new
Hmm.
headphones. I hadn't realized Pattern Finder gave so much trade information. I recently received an offer from CML for Stock Screener. Are they related to Pattern Finder and TradeMachine, as in sharing software and trade evaluations? So the Stock Screener is actually inside of Pattern Finder. That was the part that I showed first. Can you scroll down a little bit, Max, since you're sharing and point out where the screener is?
Stock screens, do you see it?
Yep, absolutely. So that's where you're going to find the stock screener. And although they're not directly connected, I just use two tabs to keep TradeMachine open and Pattern Finder to go back and forth between them. It looks like Max does the same thing. We are
Yep.
talking about in the future it possibly being something that we can have a single sign-on setup, but right now they are going to be independent. All
Okay.
right. Right now, that's all I have in chat. Do you want to go ahead? I know you were going to share community. So,
Something came up in community today about a trade on, I guess I could show this one first. Someone was asking in community, MD, NVIDIA, or one other stock, which one do people prefer for getting along? And it was a little commentary, and I suggested to the TradeMachine user that he really should ask that question in CML Pro, is there are more long-term investors in the CML Pro community, and they may have some strong opinions. And then I received a personal alert for AMD, one of the stocks that he was asking about, which is having earnings on July after the market closes. So I copied it and I just I sent the link in community, and then I was looking at the alert, and it has good results. It was originally just for a long call. I made a long call spread out of it and evaluated whether I was going to take the long 40, short 20, or long 30, short 10. They both have pretty good results. Total return 3.0, total return 3.18. I did one of each. But the key point that I wanted to highlight here is that there are no technical conditions, yet there's a back test. So what I want to highlight is you must always look at earnings handling. In this case, there's custom earnings condition, which is why this alert appeared and it's active. And when you click on custom earnings, you'll see that you open it 3 days before the earnings event. In this case, it's 3 trading days, and you close it 1 day before the earnings event. I sometimes let it, if it's got an AMC after market closes, I will let it run on the 0 day of the earnings event as well. All right. So I just want to highlight that the earnings are July 30th. We're using 7 DTE options, so it's slightly after the earnings event. And even though there were no conditions here, we must always pay attention to the earnings handling when we're looking at a back test. So that's why I wanted to mention that.
That was a really good call out. That's one of probably the most common questions that we get to support when people are unsure of why an alert has triggered, is that it's specifically to an earnings event.
There you go.
Good call
Okay.
out.
The other thing I wanted to show, and I've talked about this before, is someone in community had a personal alert for TTD, and earnings are August 8th after market closes, and wanted to know what the community thought of this personal alert. And it is a long call diagonal, as we can see here. 14-day long, 40 delta, 7-day short to 20 delta. All right. It has good results. So I looked at it on my trading software. I loaded up. In this case, it's 8-day and 15-day. That's the closest to 14 and 7. And I looked at closest to 40 delta, which was the 96 call in the Augie 9 expiration. And then I looked at close to when I did this during the trading day, I looked at closest to 20 delta. TTD was a little higher, so then the 98 call was closest to 20 delta. And what I want to highlight is the strike width on this long call diagonal is only 2 points, dollars. The debit for the trade is 367. That's a no-go. That's a no trade. It's not even close to the width of the strikes, and I like it to be less than for a diagonal trade, whether calls or puts. I want the debit that I'm paying to be less than width of the strikes that I'm buying and selling. So this is only 2 points wide. This is 3.67 points. It's not a trade. So I went back, and I got to go back to the other screen. And created an alert that was just a long call spread for TTD. 14 days to expiration. We're going to be opening it 14 days, which is today, before the earnings, closing 1 day before earnings. The earnings are on August 8th. We're using Augie 9 options, so we're cool. Right before the earnings event or 1 day before the earnings event, we'll close the long call spread. You'll see that it also has good results. And I was able to put on a trade that was 1/3 the width or less, 1/3 the strike width or less for my long call spread. And that's what I went with. So I just wanted to highlight, even when you get a long call diagonal, you've got to make sure that the debit you're paying is less than the width of the strikes. If it isn't, look at a long call spread, we'll move on to another alert.
We have another question for you. Can you explain how to use TradeMachine for day trading?
You can't use 0 DTE options currently. I know there's been some talk about implementing some 0-day, same-day trading, but I'm not aware of anything concrete or a schedule. I don't know if Amanda knows or is allowed to talk about it.
There's nothing concrete that I can share.
Okay.
It's definitely still something that's being discussed and evaluated based on
Right.
feedback that we're getting. And
Right. So what I developed, this is just personal alert. I guess I can show it.
yeah, of course. I figured that's what I left it for you to answer, because I knew you had your own method that you've been using to kind of work with, similar to a 0 DTE,
Yeah,
close to.
it's a 1 DTE trade. And let's see. All right. This is a version of it.
And while he's pulling it up, the reason for that is that TradeMachine uses end of day pricing for all entries and exits. So you can't open and close a position on the same day in TradeMachine.
Yeah. So I don't use it for IWM or RUT because at the time that I created it, they didn't have daily expirations Monday through Friday. Recently, they've implemented that, but as far as I'm concerned, there's not enough history. So I told everyone in community that I no longer look at IWM or RUT, but I do look at SPY and SPX when I get those alerts. And basically, it's using one DTE options. And if the stock is down more than 0.5% during that trading day, and the RSI 2 is greater than 30, then I will, towards the end of the day, towards the end of that one day, I will put on either a short condor, which is selling the 15 delta call and put and buying the 5 delta call and put, or more likely, I have a separate back test for just the put side, selling a 15 delta put, buying 5 delta put. All right, but you'll see that it has pretty good results. And what I did not do is I like to, when I'm looking at my one DTE trades, I like to only look at the last year because I believe it's a lot more relevant just the last year of the popularity of people using 0 and 1 DTE options. So, but I didn't make this current. So I went just the last year. You'll see there have been 6 occurrences. So not as many, but they've all been winners in both the SPY and the SPX. SPX is approximately 10 times as large as a SPY. That's why I include both.
And I don't know if this user is in community, but I know Max has shared this specific backtest link in community before, and I'm sure he'd be happy to do so again.
Yeah,
Um,
reach
if
out
it's
to
something
me.
that if it's something that you're interested in. If you're looking to ask Max a question, he is in the community every trading day answering questions. So you can actually use at and then chat Uncle Pops, that's his name in the community, to tag him and he'll get a notification. It looks like he's slacking and he's got 3 right now as it is, but he does get a notification of every time he's tagged so that he can answer your question. So if you go in there
Right.
and just say at chat Uncle Pops, share that back test that you shared on Live Help, and he will drop the link for you so you can save it for your own alerts.
Right. And people have taken that and customized it. So other community users will probably share their alerts as well. Okay.
Absolutely. That's the best part of community is that everybody just gets in there. You can probably find at least 5 or 10 different trades per day that
Oh,
people have made their own, not just day tab triggers or whatever. It's just that people have just customized to find the sweet spot and then they share it for everybody else.
right. Happens every day. All right. You can always ask questions in community.
Yep.
That's why I'm there.
Community, or you can email support. We are always happy to help any way that we can, whatever's most convenient for you. We have our next session on Tuesday afternoon during market hours. So we will see everybody then, I hope. If you have any questions in the meantime, get into the community and ask or email support and we will get you taken care of. We really appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you, everybody.
Everybody have a good night. Bye.